Here are going to be the notes for 5-2. These are the warm-up portion of it. We're going to talk about completing the square. First, we're going to do a little review from 5-1, which was writing the equation of a circle. We have the radius of 3, and then we have our center located at +1, +2. So as we remember, our formula is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Okay, so we need to remember that our center is going to be our letters h and k. Okay, it's going to be our center. So we can fill everything in here. So we're going to wind up with x, and we have a +1, so we want to subtract that. So x minus 1 squared plus y, and we have a +2 here, so y minus 2 squared is going to be equal to our radius squared. So here's our radius of 3, so we need to square that to get 9. Okay? Now to start looking at reviewing from algebra how to multiply x plus 3 times itself, or to square it. We are generally used to your little squares here, Punnett squares. And we can have our x plus 3 up here, and another x plus 3 down here. We multiply x times x, and we get x squared. Multiply 3 times x, we get a 3x. Come down this one, we get x times 3, so we get 3x. Over here we get 3 times 3 is going to be 9. There are no negatives, so then we just come out here and we say, okay, we have our x squared, plus we have this 3x here, plus this 3x, plus the 9. And then we come over here and we've got to combine our like terms. So we wind up with x squared plus 6x plus 9. Okay? Now we're going to factor the trinomial. We're going to go backwards on this one. Okay? So what we want to do is we need to remember our equation here is set up and right up at the top. Ax squared plus bx plus c. So we have the a, the b, and the c, which are representing numbers in front of our variables or the constant on the end here. So when we are looking to factor this out, we're going to take this equation or this statement right here and turn it into this. So what we need to do is we need to take b and we need to divide it by 2 to figure out exactly what is going to hang with that x. Okay? What we also need to notice is that we have a negative right here, and because of that negative, we need to realize we're going to have a minus inside. Okay? So if we take 12b, okay, b is 12, we take that and we divide it by 2, we're going to get 6. And so that's what you figure out what to put in right there. Okay? Now we're going to look at figuring out what term to complete this. All right? So we need to figure out how, like, basically how they got this 36 on this guy. So we have over here, we need to remember that c is going to be that last one there, and that's the number we're looking for. The equation to find c is simply b divided by 2 squared. Okay? So here we will take b of 8, we'll divide it by 2, and then square it. Well, 8 divided by 2 is going to be 4, and then we square it, and then we can get our 16. On B, letter B, example B over here, we'll do that same thing, and we're going to take B, and we don't need to worry about the negative on this one. but we will take b of 6, divide it by 2, I'm not really leaving myself a lot of room here, and square it. So then that comes down to 6 divided by 2 is going to be 3, and we square it, and we wind up with 9. Okay? So now we're going to talk about completing the square. So it's going to take multiple steps here. I know it says 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm not sure exactly. Some of them say 1, 2, 3, 4. You can change that if you'd like to. The first thing is that we need to move the constant that we have to the other side. Okay, the second is going to be divide everything by the coefficient that's next to x squared. We need to add new numbers to both sides, and then we're going to factor. Okay, so here, first thing we need to do is we need to move this constant to the other side. So we subtract 8 from both sides, and we're going to wind up with x squared plus 6x, and then we are going to have to add something here. And then we equal this to, well, now we have a negative 8 over here. Okay? The second step, divide everything by the coefficient of x squared. We have a 1, so we don't need to worry about that. So we're going to add the new number to both sides. And what we need to do is exactly what we did up here. And we need to figure out, okay, well, if we take off to the side, we take b6, and we actually already have this one up there. We divide it by 2, and we square it. We're going to wind up with the number that we need to add here. So we're going to add the 9, but when we add to what we do to one side, we have to do to the other to even it out. So then we get our x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals, now we have a negative 8 plus 9, we're going to wind up with a 1. So the last step is to factor, and that's going to be what we did up here on number 2. So we are going to take b again, and this time we divide it by 2. I wrote b, we could, I'll just scribble it out for note. My whiteout is somewhere else. We're going to take that and divide it by 2, and we're going to wind up with 3. So that's going to help us realize when we have our parentheses and we have our x plus or minus something squared, we've got our 3. Now we don't have any negatives here, so we're just going to leave it as plus, and then we'll add that 3 in. Now we cannot forget about the fact that we have this equals 1, and we just leave it like that. Okay? The second example over here is going to have a coefficient in front of the x squared, but our first one is to move the constant to the other side. So we have a minus 16, so now we're going to add 16 to both sides. So then we get 4x squared plus 8x. This is gone, so we set that equal to a positive 16. Now step 2, divide everything by the coefficient in front of x squared. So we're going to divide everything by 4. So then here the 4's cancel out, so we get x squared plus the 8 divided by 4 is going to give us 2, so we have 2x. And then we are going to have to add something here, and we'll leave that blank, and this will equal, then we have our 16 divided by 4, so we'll wind up with 4. Again, going back to how do we figure out what goes right here? Well, we're going to take b and divide it by 2, and that gives us 1. So then we plug in our 1 up here. But since we added the 1 over here, we have to add the 1 to the other side as well. So we get x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 4 plus 1 is going to give us 5. We're going to leave our 5, and we're going to figure out what to do over here with our x. And we see that we don't have any negatives, so we will be adding. So to figure out what to put in the parentheses here, we're going back to b over here, but this one's going to be our b divided by 2, and this one we're going to square it. So whenever we get 2 divided by 2, we wind up with 1 squared. And 1 squared is just a 1. So then we plug in that 1. Okay? That's completing the square with just the x. The next notes for 5.2 are going to be completing the square with x's and y's. Okay?